At Covington, I'm going to call our work session to order, and we appreciate you being here. We have quite a few things on the docket to discuss, but I would like to ask you to join me in the pledge to start our work session. Let us pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. As I said and shared, we've got several items to navigate and discuss in preparation for next week's business meeting. And the first one is a celebration. I always like to celebrate success, and this is a major accomplishment. And we've got several of our park staff, Drew Beckett and whole group. If you all would stand, please. Drew, you want to introduce everybody? So I'd love for you to.
Everybody.
Public comment.
4 minutes. 4 minutes.
Yeah, 4 minutes. Okay. Helen Tobin works in our office. She's our assistant office manager. Barry Zumwalt, Michael Wallens do our parks maintenance. Wes Randall, Johnny Brandenburg, our facilities maintenance.
What's his last name?
Yeah. He can pave too, I think, if he needs. Corlin Ledesma does our marketing and special events. Brian Parker is our aquatics manager. Ed Maynard, the assistant director for the department. And Katie Posey is our pavilion manager, helps us with special events as well.
So let's give them a hand first. And if y'all want to sit down, sit down. But like on behalf of the Fiscal Court and the community, I just want to say thank you, because what you all do to add to the quality of life to our community is so important. And it is thankless, and it is done in the background. And you go pick up trash, you go mow, you go clean up this, you go paint that. You get classes ready, you get schedules ready, you deal with Tim Tevis going back and forth, and just all these things that you all do. And our community is the better for it. And Drew's leadership in his position, Drew, have you even been in your position 24 months yet?
No.
So not even 24 months. But he hit the ground running, and one of the things that he set as a goal was to become MPRA CAPRA accredited. And it sets a standard, and it measures your agency to other agencies across the nation. And I think there's only 4 agencies in the state of Kentucky that are accredited, and a very small percentage across the nation. But it measures your operations, your processes, and your programs across with other standards from across the nation. And to become accredited is just a testament to your leadership and your team. Drew didn't do this by himself. It was a team effort. And I always it's just so important to have a good group and good people around you. So I'm going to read this proclamation, and then we're going to take a picture, and then I'm going to ask Drew to make some comments, and anybody else that would like to make some comments, and coming from Fiscal Court as well. So, whereas Georgetown Scott County Parks and Recreation provides public parks and recreational services to the residents of Georgetown Scott County through 16 unique parks, 3 rec facilities, 11 park sites, and 5 recreational buildings. And whereas the National Recreation and Parks Association Commission for Accreditation of Park and Recreation Agencies, CAPRA, is the only national accreditation of park and recreation agencies, and is a valuable measure of an agency's overall quality of operation, management, and service to the community. Whereas on September 15th, 2025, Georgetown Scott County Parks and Recreation received CAPRA accreditation from the National Recreation and Park Association, and whereas Georgetown Scott County Parks and Recreation earned this national accreditation by demonstrating community recognition as a great place to live, prioritizing the need for and securing external financial support to reduce costs, and being accountable and responsive to the public. Whereas Georgetown Scott County Parks and Recreation is the fourth Parks Department in the Commonwealth of Kentucky to receive this accreditation, putting our community in the top 2% nationally. Whereas Georgetown Scott County celebrates this occasion and is proud that the Georgetown Scott County Parks and Recreation remains committed to providing a high level of service to ensure that all parks are enjoyed by residents and visitors alike. Now, therefore, let it be known that Bernie Jenkins, Mayor of the City of Georgetown, and Joe Pat Covington, Scott County Judge Executive, do hereby commend Georgetown Scott County Parks and Rec for its continued dedication and service to our residents and community. And I think it's worth a hand again. And just say it again, thank you for the work that you do and just the difference that you make day in and day out for young people and all people. For that said, Drew, would you make a few comments and we'll...
Well, first, thank you, Judge Covington and magistrates, for the kind words. It's nice to be recognized. This was a years-long process for the department. It actually had began before I started. So it's the best way to measure our excellence and efficiency, and that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing to the public. So no better way to show it than being the fourth department in Kentucky and one of 231 across the country. So when you think about it, there's 10,000 parks agencies in the U.S., and we're one of 231 that's now accredited. That's probably the biggest testament you can turn around and say to all the residents of our county of the job that we're doing. So very grateful, again, for the recognition. It's been a wonderful time getting that from city, county, and even Senator Nunn came by the other day. So grateful for the recognition, but really the people that need to recognize are the ones who stood up before. That's what I've said. I think I've been here 16 months. That's the time so far. But the best thing I inherited was this group of people over here that nobody can question how hard they work, the time that they dedicate, all for the people of this community, right? And it's not always recognized. So happy to get the recognition for them when we get the opportunity to do so. Well, thank you all.
Comments from the fiscal court members? Any comments? Or so I greatly appreciate it. Let's do a picture real quick. Just Michelle.
Usually everybody stands up right now.
Chad, give me the front row. Come on, y'all. Hey, we were standing up. We were standing behind. Oh, okay. I was just following the lead sheet there. Right over there. The lead buffalo was just right off. Yeah, I guess here. You all.
That's not good.
Come down here.
It's gonna look weird.
Stand on the chairs. I should just follow me.
No.
I can stand behind Rick.
Ready?
Hey, Drew, thank you all again. So we've got a few items that take a little bit more time than other items. And just to, like, Jailer Broyles came and wanted to talk to the court, I'm going to let you go next, and then so you don't have to sit through RV park conversations the whole time.
God bless you, Judge. Thank you.
Jailer Broyles, you owe me now.
I owe you, yes. Yeah.
But Jailer Broyles stopped and wanted to address the court and ask, Jailer, I'll turn you loose here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judge. Good morning, magistrates. Not sure if I'll be able to make the meeting next Friday or not, but I've got a couple of deputies that need to go out of state to Columbus, Ohio next weekend to the following weekend for training. Just wanted to see, it's defensive tactics training. We sent them earlier this year for the first level. It's called GST. We sent them for the first level, and this is the second level of that. And this will be the final level. This is as high as they go. And so they'll just have recertifications after that. Those should be in Louisville, so no.
We'll put that on the agenda for Friday morning.
That would be great.
They probably leave on Friday, or before.
They'll be leaving on Sunday, actually.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll put this on the agenda, and don't y'all have any questions about any of that? Shouldn't be an issue at all.
Columbus, Ohio.
Okay. Big city of Columbus.
That's right.
Pretty nice, really. Jailer, thank you. Anything else?
That is it.
I know
That's
y'all
it.
been out doing beautification, litter abatement, and all those things, and
Yep.
appreciate it much.
Absolutely. Thank you so
All
much.
right,
Thanks,
thank
Judge.
you. Next, I've got that joint proclamation that we just did for Parks and Rec, and I think the next item, Brad Nation. I'm going to give you a break, Brad Nation. we won't make you sit through the whole RV park discussion either. But Brad Nation's with Shrout Tate and Wilson. We've worked quite a bit with Brad, and Rick handed out the bid tabulation sheet related to our HVAC renovation project that we've been so badly needing.
Hey, Judge, before you get any further into discussion.
But we're not voting.
Well, I know, but I'm just going to step out of the discussion as well for two reasons. Our company is currently on a project that Shrout Tate Wilson is the part of the design team. And then on this particular project, as it turns out, BES, Brent's Electrical Solutions, is my son. And he's in this bid process, so I'm just going to step out of the discussion.
Whatever you feel comfortable with, and I respect that, and making note of that. So, Brad, I'll turn it over to you to just give us highlight about the bids, and then you and I spoke. I would like to hear you speak about the alternate number one, the pumps.
Sure.
And the significance of why we should probably consider moving forward with that alternate and how it improves the overall scope of the project.
Right. Okay. Sounds great. So about 10 days ago, not this last Tuesday, but the Tuesday before, we received 3 bids in this location for the project. So those 3 bids were from Mullis Incorporated, H&R Mechanical, and TP Mechanical. So not to go quite in all the numbers unless you want me to, Judge, but the low bid on that project was TP Mechanical. That's counting this alternate number that Judge Covington was talking about regarding pumps. So all 3 bidders had great qualifications, have done plenty of work in the area, even in Georgetown specifically. So we did a little more research because TP Mechanical was the low bidder, and the fiscal court was not as familiar with them. We did a little more research on our side from Shrout Tate Wilson's end, contacts from other people around Central Kentucky. We did request references from them of current projects and complete projects that I believe you passed out to the court, Judge. And using those references and our own personal experience, we were able to talk to other people about the work TP Mechanical does and has done. All that's received positive feedback. We've heard them take care of very technical projects to very large projects all across the board in Central Kentucky and the surrounding Kentucky region. They've been in business for quite a while. They were recently bought a couple years ago by a bigger conglomerate, so they have more resources, more technicality. That's probably why you see them have a little bit lower of a budget number on this project compared to some of the other smaller contractors. So nothing from what we can tell from our research into them has any kind of bearing of them being an issue at all for bid. So
You don't have any reservations about their bid or
no. Shrout Tate Wilson
qualifications?
has a current project with them as well. They've been doing well so far. They've done stuff with University of Kentucky, even on the very technical side, to install in coordination with other contractors. So the actual, to go into a little bit more weeds, the estimator who was actually on our project, who estimated this project for the court, was a very well-known contractor in Lexington before he kind of moved over to TP, so he has a background in this area and knows a lot about it. He's not coming from outside the state or unfamiliar with Central Kentucky at all, so he had very good reviews.
That's good,
Yes, sir.
then. So Brad, that base bid of $999,000 includes a full replacement of the chiller
Yes.
and then all the other units.
Yes.
And that alternate of the pump, the 73.5, the pumps,
Yes.
those pumps is what provide the circulation and
Right. So to go in a little bit detail, the main scope of the project was to improve. The major concern is humidity, temperature control in the spaces, right? I think anybody who's been in this building, especially in the middle of the summer, can kind of tell the need for that, right? So the biggest concerns were the chiller, because it was not maintaining temperatures, and the air handling units that are throughout the space, over 40 plus of them in this building, were not only old.
how many total air handlers?
I believe there was about 45 fan coil units, which are what are above the ceiling or in the attic, and then there's one kind of larger air handler. So there's quite a few within the space, most of which, at least according to your all's maintenance contract with Mullis, probably have not been fully replaced since they were installed. More so maintained, duct tape, whatever you had to do.
I think these were installed in like 92.
92 to 5-ish range, yeah. So they obviously at this point in time need to be replaced. It's past their lifespan.
And the other piece that JR and Chip even helps sometimes, but the other piece that we're dealing with is all the piping to
Yeah.
these handlers are experiencing degradation and corrosion and leaks, and this is going to handle all of
Yeah, specifically with the valving close to those air handlers, anytime water's exposed over a long period of time, corrosion can happen. So the goal here is to replace that valving where it's corroding and get those units replaced. And with that, improve the chiller performance, which is going to improve your cooling performance, and your air handlers are going to have newer coils that can handle that. Now, what wasn't necessarily a baseline concern from the project was the pumps initially, because they were receiving the proper GPM, they were receiving the proper, load profile as typical. But given the age of the pumps, they are a failure point that could happen and cause issues with the building, so we considered those as an alternate. It's not necessarily going to help with your humidity concerns, right? But it is a good idea to do now when you're taking the chiller down, when you're doing a major HVAC replacement, because you're going to have a very technical team on site handling it. You're going to have an electrician already on board who can kind of handle the concern there. And it's just going to make it a smoother process, especially if you replace all four of them. There are 4 pumps, 2 for the chilled water side, 2 for the hot water side. If you do all of them at once, that's going to keep you on the same kind of maintenance trajectory and not have to replace one when it finally fails with a new one, and then you're off balance. So overall, these prices for the alternate number 1 replacement seem very reasonable. It seems like a great opportunity to do it while this project is happening. And it will definitely help with the performance of the building long term, since they are near the end of life as well, although not experiencing the service issues as some of the other equipment.
But along those lines, JR pulled me aside this morning, and he just wanted to make sure we were going to recommend the pumps as well, because JR's, the Mullis is here, and JR's involved with the maintenance quite a bit, and you would agree that the pumps would be a wise decision. And then, does anyone have any questions about that TP Mechanical or the base bid or the alternate? While we've got Brad here, does anybody have any questions about that?
So essentially, you're not redesigning the system. All you're doing
Correct.
is just replacing all the equipment
Yeah.
to modernize it. And
The
Yes.
controllers are being,
There's going to be new controls related to the new equipment, but yeah, the general layout of everything is going to be the same. Yeah, it's not an overhaul completely of the HVAC system. It's a equipment replacement project, pretty much, and controls project.
I'm excited about this because it's overdue, and I think we've got a really good contractor that will do the work. And you know, this is so important, for this building. So, any other questions?
Time frame again, I'm sorry.
The time frame that we've proposed the contract, now they are actively,
Putting
depending on,
together a contract.
if we give them kind of permission to proceed with alternate number one, they can kind of throw that in their contract. We have asked for a schedule based off of approval within a relatively short time period of your all's next meeting.
We'll do a pre-construction meeting, and
There would be
No, I mean
yeah,
project
yeah, the,
itself.
we've proposed to them 150 days, so, we didn't get any pushback from that on their end. We do give them some liberty if they feel like there's challenges with lead times or other kind of obstacles that may prevent that. We've kind of told them that the court is willing to work with them in a reasonable fashion to kind of form a schedule that's relatively well. Now,
it'll be a lot of, like, we're going to have to, like, shuffle.
Yeah.
And juggle. And there will never be a good time to do it. We just got to do it, but we'll communicate.
yeah, the only area that doesn't have equipment literally above the ceiling is probably this floor. Every other floor is going to have active work in the ceiling that may be disruptive for your all's
We
operations.
might have
but-
to move desks and such, but.
Right.
So I'm comfortable with those recommendations. If no one has any other questions, the next thing, we were sitting in this meeting and talking, and the concern originally about lighting was in the attic. But after looking at the attic lighting was okay.
Yeah.
But we discussed this room, because if we were doing electrical, this room the lighting in this room needs renovation. And this bid that is presented, alternate number 2 courtroom lighting, would redo all of these lights to LED. And I think it'd be very positive to do that. And that bid, you can see that from that bid for $14.5. The other two, once we got these prices, we were talking about the interior lighting of the tower. I just, it's dark, but I don't know if $10,000 is what really needs to be spent on that. I would probably say let's hold on that and look at, is there any alternates, anything we can do to improve that. And then you can alternate for exterior lighting on the tower. This was me. I always have thought that we needed more lighting on our tower. It is the landmark of the county, in my opinion. And we have some lighting, but you don't know how much something's going to cost until you put a bid out. And the $19,750, I don't know if that's something we want to do either. I'll be honest.
Are they going to run a Black Friday sale?
I think it'd be great to have LED lighting on the outside of the tower, but like I said, until you do a bid, you just don't know what it is. And 19.7, I don't know if we need to do that right now. So I would still, though, support the interior of this courtroom being renovated, the lighting. And then the other piece that we don't have in the bid would just be a direct purchase, and then is the sconces in the hallway. We've talked about this is not the Scott County Funeral Home. We need to redo those, and Brad's team has sent us some options that I'll share 2 or 3 with you all, and maybe we can pick and get a price on just doing a direct purchase of the sconces, and then getting a price just for someone to change those sconces out. It's not wiring, it's just literally taking one off and replacing it. So that's part of this, but doesn't have to be in a bid. Any questions or comments?
So, looking at it, I know we budgeted, I think, $1 million. So
Yeah.
all the money would.
No, I think we actually budgeted $850.
Okay.
Yeah, but we
Maybe I
had,
was thinking it was going to be costing about $1 million. But
was it 900?
so all the reserve for transfer will
We'll
cover the additional
we'll
cost.
pull some reserve for transfer and do it.
Yeah, and And we should get their final number with their contract, because we did ask for them to do some
And I'm so
direct
glad
material purchases that
So
would save you
we
money.
want to see if there's going to be some savings from direct purchase.
Yeah.
And I think there will be.
Yeah, they should be with the amount of equipment, yes.
So Brad, thank you for
Yep.
coming. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll have this as an agenda item and discuss it next week, and take it up for
And the
consideration.
recommendation of would go to TP Mechanical?
Yes,
Mechanical.
TP Mechanical, and do base bid, alternate 1, and then alternate 2.
Okay.
If you'll have them.
I'll have them
make the
write the
contract
contract.
accordingly.
Yes, sir.
And
I
then
will.
send that, and we'll have Cam review it, and hopefully that
Yeah.
gets us going, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Judge. Thank you, Magistrate.
And then, next short item, Drew, come on up. We have met in interlocal meetings, trying to move some quality of life projects that have been needed. Kind of made a top 5 list, top 6 list. But
Somebody get Ricky.
Rick,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah,
District 1.
yeah.
I was like, who's Ricky? I don't know. Left my stuff.
Hey, there you But
You're welcome.
I want to present next Friday Resolution 2517, and it essentially, I'm not going to read the whole resolution, but it essentially, takes into account that we are agreeing to move forward with the design of the youth softball, youth baseball fields at Great Crossing Park. In our meeting with the interlocal group, David mentioned, and this is something that was originally on the CMW plan from years ago for Great Crossing Park, an amphitheater being designed, an outdoor amphitheater. And you had a concert there earlier this fall, had over 400 people there. Getting something like that designed to have a permanent little spot, nothing crazy, just having a spot to have outdoor concerts, or even maybe maybe even outdoor play under the stars, I think would be a great thing. And like I said, and I think David, I'll let David speak to this, but this second wagon wheel in this amphitheater has been on the plan since before the thing, it was part of the whole thing when it was built. So knowing, and I'll let you speak to in your mind, number one is fields for softball and baseball that need to be added. And this would address that immediately, correct?
Yes, and we'd be grateful for that. We're busting at the seam. Every park we have, the growth in the community, and we haven't added fields. Well, before Great Crossing, I don't know how many years ago that was now, but think about the growth since those were built, and everything's busy every night.
So I would, and I think I would like to see if we're going to price out a wagon, a cloverleaf, which is 4, you might as well see if you can fit 5, because nobody will ever say, "Oh, we didn't need that field." So
No.
we'll look at those options. But this resolution essentially formalizes that, hey, we're moving forward with this. The city is agreeing that they're going to have a lap pool that has been designed a couple times.
20 years, yep.
20 years ago.
Great Crossing.
It's been longer than Great Crossing, but they're going to oversee the design and then maybe the procurement of building a lap pool. So this is moving it forward. We'll bring this forward on Friday. Do you have any other comments, or does any magistrate have any questions?
Could we have like Design A and Design B where we look at the cost of turf fields versus dirt, because it's just a lot less maintenance
Now, no, I would,
and even looking
I
at
vote turf.
possibly turfing the other 4 fields in the process.
and you can get prices for that. And then Tim Tevis, if he was sitting here today, he's out there working on fields.
He would
What's
second
been-
the motion.
Yeah.
And I would third it and fourth
But
it.
the other item that needs to be considered, that is a constant maintenance issue at the current fields, are the medians that are grass that just get worn out with. They need to be either turfed or they need to be concreted. Whatever if you concrete them, they're going to be there. If you turf them, there's going to be 10 years of, they'll get there. You'll get them for 10 years, but there'll always be maintenance with
I
it.
think
So,
you need to concrete them just due to the fact that people will have dogs that will try to pee on the
Yeah,
turf.
and
We
I don't
out at Great
disagree.
Crossing, where the baseball softball is, when they designed it, they designed the little islands there that ended up doing the same thing, and they came in this past summer and concreted it in, and it's so much better out there now. It gives more crowd room to be able to stand around.
So that needs to be a part of the conversation as well.
We had some initial proposals from years ago.
Yeah.
So we got some idea. I mean, the cost will be different now, obviously, but.
And you, I'm going to ask your all's pleasure, but, we have worked with Branstad Carroll on many projects, and I'll just be honest and transparent. Like, I'm very happy with the service that we get. That is a professional service. My question to Cam is, if the court's pleasure is to just have Branstad Carroll provide these services, do we need to put out a bid for that service, or can we just elect to negotiate a fee with them on what we want done?
Probably can do it. It's professional services.
Yes.
Negotiate with them.
I think I'm comfortable with that if everybody else is.
I had one question, Drew. So, like when we designed and David can correct me, I think we made 3 fields 200 foot long, and we did 220. Is that the desire going forward with the proposed field length? Because I know that's the meat and potatoes of what the majority of our participants, they play on the 200 foot or 220.
Mike,
Your mic on.
220 foot length. Yeah, I think there you go.
Second try.
Fence line. Is
Yeah.
that what your recommendation is?
I mean, the vast majority, yeah, the 220 is great. I mean, if we're going for it, if you can have one full-size field, like a 300-foot fence, I don't know how the wagon wheel would look, but it would be nice to have.
But don't we already have that at Sutton, right?
Sure,
And up
yeah.
there by the animal control. And I think
Yep.
that's the reason why we steered away from all that.
Oh,
Well, one of the reasons we steered away from it too is because senior league there were not a ton of
What- yeah.
participants on senior league. And so we shortened the fields because there was more in the younger kids. And then when they start getting older, they hit travel ball. And there were more going to travel ball. And then on top of that, the fact that if you go beyond 220, say if you do 250, 275, you're going to have to
It changes everything.
when you host softball games, you're going to have to put temporary fencing up.
Yeah.
And all that.
Yeah.
But that would be your recommendation.
Well, I mean, again, if the focus is local, I mean, then, yeah, the smaller fields are great. If you want to host some bigger tournaments out there and give yourself that option to have, 13 to 18-year-old
Yeah.
baseball on a full-size field, it's at least the time to look at it and see, price it out, whatever you want
But
to do.
I think you would only do 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And at that point, nobody's going to bring a travel tournament.
Well, the original plan had one full-size field in it, and we reduced that to have it all in that area
Yep.
where it had the most mass appeal, and you could get the most
Yeah,
participants.
at most I do one, and if you're turfing it, that's the other draw compared to our existing full-size fields.
Okay.
Drew, I have a question.
Yep.
Do you think, so I just asked David, this preceded me on the court, that this fields and the plan for Great Crossings Park were done in 2025? Well, they were put in 2025.
20.
I'm sorry, 20. I saw
20 is when they were completed.
completed, so I assume that the plans were well before then.
Right.
So we're talking about an amphitheater, which I'm not against. I think it's a great thing. But
Yep.
with that space, in your opinion, do we need more fields for any other sports? Or would you say, maybe at the time in 2018, amphitheater made sense, but now we're 7 years later. Does that still make sense? Or do you think that space could be used for something else? I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe we need to go amphitheater route.
That's hard for me to comment on directly. We have other parks where other things could be put, including an amphitheater. If you want it at a different park, but I understand Great Crossing might be the ideal spot where it's not around a lot of housing and other things we don't have to deal with. So,
And I go back to that was part of the original design. And when I say we're going to include this in the scope, I think we're putting, baseball, softball fields, it's more of a placement siting and such, making sure we don't do anything that we wish that we didn't do down the field. Because I just don't know how big, what the footprint of that looks like. And then, of course, we want to do it conservatively, but just I think when you do this process, citing that is kind of part of the process.
Yeah, and we do have a few concepts already that I've received for amphitheater, because it is something, if you all don't do it, Parks would like to pursue, because I think it's a need for our community to have. So I can share those with
What
you.
other parks would you put an amphitheater?
To answer Ryan's question, though, we looked at that a long time ago to have this universal field where you could have soccer, lacrosse. But what's happened is Scott County High School, Great Crossings High School, has come on since then, and they have been very open to renting fields to these groups, and that need has really gone away from what we looked at when David and I, and then later on Judge Lusby, then Judge Covington came on. There was other places for those types of uses. So.
Yeah, and so like flag football, youth football, as they've removed one field out at Marshall. Mm-hmm. You build this, there's a possibility that you could expand that even further with another field out there, because this might lighten up that load on Marshall, and it's not being used as much. And then Sutton, the big conversation has been through the years is the cemetery and having to expand the cemetery eventually.
Oh, you mean Cephaletta?
Cephaletta, yeah, sorry.
And I'll speak to that. Like, Devin and the city are actively looking, because there's land and water money at Cephaletta, and we have to have room to expand the cemetery in the future. So what we have to do is transfer that land and water space and square footage to another site that will allow for expansion of the cemetery. So that's all part of the equation, and juggling it is a.
Have I ever told you how much I hate land and water grants?
And I agree, and I wouldn't put a land and water on something, anything new. That's why we went land and water back at Brookings, because it was already there.
Yeah, but so if Cephaletta had to expand and then the city decided to do something different with Marshall, yes, there's room out there at Great Crossing that you could put another 2 or 3 fields, 4 fields, out in that space if we needed to expand that area as well.
So, anything else? Rick Hostetler.
So, one of the guys I work with he's like from Bath County, and 2 weekends ago, I think they had a big tournament, and his daughter's in softball, and so he was down, they were here at Great Crossing. I didn't get to go out there, and I try to go every summer just to see, because like the parking is all I ever hear about. People complain that there's not enough parking with what we got going on now. At some events, I'm sure it's not at all of them, but right. So I just kind of want to highlight that, because he said it was great, but it was packed and it was tight on parking. That's why.
This will have to be a part of this. The parking will be part of the design.
I mean, we're almost. It sounds like, and I'm like Ryan said, I'm not like even I'm not opposed to any of this development, and I think they're all great potential, and I know they're going to get used, but it looks like we're going to have to cover it with fields and or blacktop.
Well,
what's left with the property? I mean, we just got to consider
where that big mountain of dirt is still is where we paid dollars to really do a grade for that. So that's really where that clover leaf's going to go. But like fitting in parking down around and challenge is a challenge. Right. The other question is, do you go up to the dog park and just go kind of below the dog park and add, and then add a walkway?
Well, when they're the design team, if that's the route we go and who we choose, that's what they need to be.
But my desire is to conserve that big open hillside and green space as you come in as much as we can, because I've talked openly about I'd love to plant up 500 trees there. I'm saying 500, but I would love for us to make a tree plan to plant a lot of trees in that big open area in the future. I mean, I think parks need trees. And I don't think anybody ever said, I don't like shade. So that's something we could do. Yes, sir. Kelly Corman.
On either the pool project or the park, are we sharing any of these costs with the city?
So
how does that work?
So so both entities would get and do the design and procurement. Let's say the baseball, softball fields were $4 million. Let's say the swimming pool was 4.5. We would split the difference and both entities would be agreeing to cover what was eventually the final cost.
For both projects?
For both
so
projects.
So we'd be 50%
Yes,
on both?
that's the plan.
Gotcha.
And that's language is in the interlocal agreement.
I just want to clarify.
Yeah, and I thank you for doing that because that's a good point. I think it's
Are
shared.
Would we be any type of timeline restraints based on waiting for them to do their project versus us doing our project, or, you know?
I wouldn't move forward unless we're in lockstep and moving together. I mean, why do we do a resolution?
Not ever do anything then.
If we waited for the EMS station for them to build the fire department.
Let's be positive and we've got a resolution and let's be positive and let's move forward. With that said though, thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
Now, next real quick, Mike Hennigan, putting you on the spot. $224,000 was the loan bid submitted for the tornado shelter bid that we put out, that we have a commitment from a private partnership there to where we think the need is on Lyle Road to add this additional shelter. And we have that $75,000 additional commitment, but the only bid we received was from Hinkle Construction for $224,000. We were really hoping and estimating that the bid would be around 155, between 155 and 160. So we're talking an additional $64,000. Safety Shelter, who put in the original two, did not bid. They knew about the opportunity, but they did not bid. Mike, let's talk to them. You want to share what you've learned?
I reached out to the person, the salesman that I was working with last year when we went through this process. And first of all, I reached out to him when we opened up the bid process to make sure that he was aware of the project. They said they were aware of the project and that they had received a request from a general contractor. I just assumed that they would be bidding and providing information for somebody else. When we received that single bid from Hinkle, I reached back out to Safety Shelter and asked if there was any reason why they didn't want to bid on a project that was a continuation of an existing. And without saying in so many words, they said that they had found a better opportunity where they thought that there was going to be a chance to sell numerous units instead of just this one.
So let me ask you this. This is a significant increase in price. Since we only had one bid, can I ask the court next Friday to authorize us to do competitive negotiation with the submitter?
Yeah, because I think the bid exceeded the available funds, right?
Correct.
So, yes.
Could you also talk with the original installer?
Which he did.
No. Can you also bring them into the mix to say, in a competitive negotiation, when you open it up, if someone else wants to come back in, or?
I don't think.
Okay, let me ask you this. Is there any chance, did we check to see if this was on a state bid list?
It's not.
No.
And it's not even on, I was really trying and hoping that it was on Sourcewell, but it's not on Sourcewell.
You can always put it back.
No, we can vote to reject the bid
Put it back up the bid.
and put it back out to bid, but I think the only chance for us to do competitive negotiation is if you all authorize me to do so with the.
Now, you might be able to, VE it a little bit, sitting down with them, all right, tell them to come to you with what are some things we can cut that don't necessarily impact the project, and the things that they saw that drove up the price for them. And I've done several of those where
So there's.
you just throw everything out on the table.
So there's nothing wrong with me calling the bidder and saying, hey, we're going to talk about this on Friday. Do you want to offer to us any value engineering between now and then. Is that
I
fair?
think it's fine.
All right. So
So how much were the original ones?
We paid 138
And that was how many years ago?
July of 2024.
138.
Basically the same
It's
unit,
exact-
same
we-
size, same everything.
We put out
copy.
an identical bid spec.
Identical.
And we expected the increase because the cost of steel and,
Yeah,
different.
like that's why we said 155.
Yeah.
To us. So let's I'll bring more information to you. You know what I know.
Right.
Thank you, Mike. Anything
And-
else?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we have to be a little careful with the engineering to make sure that it still qualifies as an EF5.
We're not going to change the actual structure of the shelter.
Right, I get that, but, you can't say that we're going to buy cheaper concrete or we're going to do smaller footings or, the things that they might come back in as possibilities to try and, get that.
No, we have to follow those specs.
Right.
Yeah. All right. With that said, I appreciate it very much. EMS, next Friday we will have a agreement about software. The previous approved software provider could not meet the needs of what we needed. We've got this other option, and it's actually less, so that is on the docket. And then good news from CAECO, we will be awarded a $10,000 grant to install those dash cameras in the EMS ambulances. Not only do these dash cameras watch the road, but they also watch the driver's eyes. They do a lot of alerting and very, very positive thing on safety and improved communication. Anything else you want to add there?
Judge Magistrates. No, I think you covered it. There's just a whole lot of Big Brother stuff going on in that cab. We have the ability to live stream the cameras as they're driving down the road. We have the ability to speak to them as they're actively driving. We can hear audio in that cab, and then it will alert if their eyes are off the road, if they pick up the phone, if they don't put their seatbelt on, if they break certain speed thresholds. It will
You get
notify us
notification.
in live, real time on our phone, so we can.
What about, you had spoken about when they're nearing a intersection, if the people around there are on ways or?
Yeah. So and I think David had mentioned that he actually gets those alerts. So if you have Apple Maps or Google Maps and are actively have those open, it will alert you that emergency vehicle is approaching.
It'll do an audible.
Yeah, but the
to me, that is huge.
Yeah, the new models of cars have that built in, so you don't even have to have your map open. It'll come up. And we get notifications from them monthly, and I think last month it said we notified over 12,000 drivers.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you very much. Zach, real quick, I know you're going to pull up the PowerPoint that's going to come with this, but I sent you a couple emails. One was a flyer about a food drive, and the other is our new ladder truck. Just wanted to mention that. If you could pull up, there's the ladder truck. It is on our property. This has been a long process. John and his team are upfitting it, putting hoses on it, doing all those things. But this is replacing a 26-year-old ladder truck that we have in service right now that we can't get parts for anymore. Much, much needed. And, as we paid for this out of previous budgets, and just very grateful to be able to put this in service and protect our community. John, do you want to make any comment? I know you all are hard at it.
Again, we just appreciate your all's support. Without your all's support, this wouldn't be.
So, and a reminder, we're waiting on 3 pumpers that are en route as well that we've paid out of previous budgets and this budget as well. So. Yeah, so it's a 36-month turnaround, as you all know, and just excited about that. And then the other piece is the flyer about our county food drive to help our neighbors. and drop-off locations are out there at Lexus Way, 690 EMS station, 2200 fire station on Cincinnati Pike, and then the sheriff's office. But the agencies all our agencies in county government are, I'm encouraging everyone to help between now and December 17th. And you can scan that QR code to make a direct donation to the Amen House. And the Amen House has listings there with the SNAP benefit issues and just a lot of people in Scott County. I've driven by the Amen House this week in the morning, and the lines have been out to Washington and down to Paris Pike a few times, doubled up. And, just there's a real increased need. And what's special about Scott County, we're blessed to have the Amen House, gathering place. There's several nonprofits that help so many people in our community, but feeding them. And, the Amen House, we helped with that, their food distribution center with the CDBG grant, and then also with ARPA funds to buy the property. And then, most recently, they've just opened up this week a kitchen called Russ's Kitchen, and anybody can show up there, no questions asked, and get a meal, and a hot meal. And we're blessed, and this is what makes our community special, that we have people, the volunteers there, the leadership there that care about so many things. So I'm going to keep sharing that this week, and I'm in the next few weeks as well to try to help, and I'd ask everybody to do so as well. So that any questions about that or comments? And then I'm going to turn it over to Holden now, and I will ask Holden to share, just a presentation summary of the work that's been done. We all know about the work that's been done on the RV ordinance through the Planning Commission and staff. There's been several public meetings, a lot of public input. Committee worked on making a recommendation. So I think we have a really good piece of work to present, and then we'll take comments and from the public after Holden. So Holden, thank you, and your staff.
Judge Covington, I appreciate it. Magistrates, Judge Covington really did just say it all right there. This has been a long time coming. There's been a lot of effort that's been contributed to this project from both the staff, the Planning Commission members, as well as the public. Out of that, I think we have a very good ordinance related to RVs and RV campgrounds that is tailored for Scott County specifically. This touches on several different parts of our code, from definitions into the specific use section where the majority of the project or text lies, and then also amends certain portions of our A1 zone for both accessory uses in the A1R zone for permitted uses. If I wanted to give you guys the quickest overview of what we're doing here, is we're trying to create flexibility for residents of Scott County who both want to recreate and people who might have a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit and want to bring in a new recreational facility for our county. When we look at that, the primary, again, like the meat and potatoes of this document lies on page 7 if you want to flip to it. This is a really kind of, I think, is the neatest part about this ordinance, is the matrix that's been set up and created that basically lays out this idea that not all RV parks are created equal. And as an RV park gets larger, it's got a greater potential to impact neighbors. It's got a greater potential to create hazardous situations potentially.
This
and
page 7
with the chart.
Yeah.
Just real quick, we have an article, and then what's the difference?
So this is what came from the Planning Commission. Okay. Then you have the actual draft ordinance that in the summary that Cam did.
And that just incorporates everything that Holden's going to tell you.
So Holden is talking to you out of what
the document,
what I handed out, and this is red lines, page 7. So everybody got that?
Well, it's a chart. Hang out for a second.
And that's what you're speaking from.
We're going to talk about the matrix.
Yeah.
And for all there.
We're ready, man.
Yeah. Again, the really the neat thing about this is just kind of this idea that not all RV parks are going to be the same size, they're not going to all be the same intensity. And so when we look at siting an RV park inside of Scott County, we need to take into consideration the available road network around the facility, available infrastructure and utilities, as well as just how many RVs that person wants to park on that parcel or bring into that facility. And so that's where I think a lot of great conversation can be had. Is this right sized for Scott County?
And I would draw your attention that we are still considering and making a spot in this matrix for accessory use for your farms, your smaller horse farms and such that might have a couple, come in for a show or whatever it might be. But we specifically did not want to prohibit that type of accessory use, like two units per 5 acres, minimum parcel size of 5 acres. It's that smaller aspect. We wanted to make sure that was still a consideration.
Yeah, and so that's a kind of a great kind of jumping off point associated with this. I mentioned that this does affect the Article 4 within the zoning ordinance, which is just our general zoning section. And so within the A1, which is a majority of the county, this accessory use of it for RVs would be considered a conditional use permit. And so somebody who is already zoned A1, who thinks that, they just need 1 or 2, maybe up to 5 if it's a particularly large parcel, they would not have to go through a rezone process to get a couple RVs on site, with the idea being that they're accessory to the agricultural use of the property. The story that we heard and the story that was really kind of central to that accessory kind of viewpoint is, what if somebody's got a small horse arena? Or what if that is kind of the idea? And so that accessory use would just require a simple conditional use permit. It still would be reviewed by the Board of Adjustment to make sure that it meets all the other requirements for a conditional use permit, and we can mitigate against offsite impacts. But that's as you see, permitted on any size road in Scott County currently. And so anybody could get that accessory use. When you look at that low, medium, or high density, which are, again, subjective terms, open for discussion. But when you look at those other levels, the understanding is before anybody could put in an RV park at either at low, medium, or high density, it would first have to go through a rezoning process, which, as you guys are aware, is a full Planning Commission board hearing. And then that all gets forwarded to the fiscal court for final say on whether or not a property is appropriate to be rezoned into A1R, which would then theoretically make them eligible for one of these other more intense RV uses. And so in doing that, what we've said kind of along this way is that there's certainly places in Scott County for RV parks to be sited appropriately, but that's not everywhere. And so we've taken a lot of care in creating this ordinance to make sure that we're protecting the residents of Scott County while still allowing for that flexibility of the end user, or the person wanting to recreate, or the person wanting to diversify, economic opportunities in unincorporated Scott County. And so I just want to pause for a second, because it is an 11-page ordinance that we've sent over to you guys. And so if you have specific questions, I'd love to talk those out. Otherwise, I am joined by my staff here. In particular, I want to call out Mr. Rhett Shirley. Spent a lot of time with this document and put a lot of consideration into each one of these requirements.
I'm sure Rhett would feel like if this got passed before Christmas,
that's a Christmas
that would be
present.
An early Christmas present.
At the pleasure of the court.
Yeah. Comments from Fiscal Court, or questions as Holden has. Any comments or questions? Yes, sir.
As Chad's brought up in a couple meetings, one of the things I was very conscious about and wanted to think about was if somebody has a private sewer or private, I'm just going to say private sewer, for lack of a better term. If it failed or they, in the campground shut down, what was the recourse that the court would have for helping get it cleaned up, right? And so we talked about insurance, we talked about a bond, and now it looks like we're on surety bonds. Like why surety bonds as the final kind of, and there's no amount. So.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
So part of the conversation, this was considered and passed by our planning commission and forwarded to us. We now have the opportunity to review, and if there are small items, minimum items that we want to recommend, well, during that conversation that night, the discussion, I'd actually been texting with David Livingston that night. And what I would recommend adding to this is the language along the specified coverage amount would be $1 million per occurrence, and David recommended $3 million aggregate pollution policy, naming the Scott County Fiscal Court as additionally insured. And then David even recommended saying tail coverage of 7 years should they shut down. Now, at what level does that go in? And I'll turn it over to you.
You said nose coverage, not tail coverage.
Nose,
yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the.
So you would get rid of the surety bond, and you would add in insurance. I mean, I still don't know.
The thing that concerns me about the surety bond is we've had subdivisions being built, and there are surety bonds to make sure things are brought up to spec if something happens, and then they go out of business and the surety bond goes away and we're left holding the bag on having to improve roads and everything in a subdivision.
But my question is, at what number of RVs do we require that level of coverage?
I think if you have a private sewer, right?
Well, I'm asking.
It's not going to be very expensive anyway. I mean, because they'll purchase their property liability and then they'll just add on pollution liability.
And I've often said.
But your question kind of is like, the small little one or two.
Do we require that for accessory use?
Are you going to ask the same level?
Would accessory use even have to have a sewer? Right? Isn't that like coming in for a weekend and leaving? That's where
use your own.
So my understanding is when I talked with Wedco this week, anything that is kind of under 200 gallons, it can kind of be of sewage per day can be left up without having to go through some of the extensive requirements by Wedco. So I guess if kind of a benchmark would be under 200 gallons per day. I don't know what that really means, but Wedco kind of explained that's not very many RVs. And so if we looked at it from that perspective, you probably would not require insurance of someone who's having accessory use and that thing, because they generally take their sewage someplace else.
Did they give like gallons per day per RV? Like, how would we know? Like, you say not very many. Like, I don't know.
The other thing too is what a lot of people do when they camp is they'll have a portable tank, and they'll pull it up at the dump station and they'll dump before they leave.
Right.
Well, not even a portable tank, even their black water tanks and gray water tanks in an RV, they'll pull up and dump them before they leave because you don't want to be carrying 150 gallons. So if you've got 5 people pulling out that day, they're probably in that circumstance going to be more than 200 gallons dumped into the system. Does that make sense?
So would this insurance just be a requirement of a private system that treats over 200 gallons per day?
I think any system is going to treat over.
Well, I'm just saying the requirements for the private system that's over 200.
I may be able to just contribute very little on this. Early on in this process, Planning Commission made a strategic decision that we were not going to try to be WEDCO 2.0.
Right.
And so within this ordinance, if we look at page 5, on section 2A, the idea is that any RV campground operating on private sanitary sewer, which is approved, permitted, installed, and maintained pursuant to the requirements of WEDCO District Health Department. And so the assumption is whether it's accessory or any of those higher uses, they're going to have to satisfy all of WEDCO's requirements and get square with them. If we're talking about insurance associated with this, that is right now, again, bottom of page 5, section 6. Prior to operation of approved RV campground, which again would be all of them, accessory through high density, the applicant shall provide GSBC proof of an adequate surety. And so by just saying surety there, we did intend at Planning Commission level for bond or insurance, because both could be a form of surety, against damages or failures of the approved private sewer facility. And so from my perspective, though, if you draw that line between accessory and then the rest, at accessory, it's a different permit that they're receiving. It is a conditional use permit, which is a lower threshold of review. Still a permit, still goes through a formal process. But if you draw that line there, and we recognize that they still have to have the WEDCO requirements, and they're still, they should still have that, liability property insurance, just associated with, having people visit your property. Staff believes that should be sufficient. When we look past that to all those other higher levels, if the court desires more specific requirements, I think that could be very easily inserted into that 6th section right there, where you include the notice coverage and you include the, the amount per, problem. But I'm gonna say too, we've really layered a lot of protection around this specific issue, because we know if this goes bad, it goes really bad. And so we've, again, we require all WEDCO stuff to be met. We allow for the option of that kind of dump tank facility to be pumped out and removed from the site. We ensure that it's outside of the 1% annual flood area. And then number 5 too, we even just recognize that if somebody goes out of compliance with their sanitary sewer, that's grounds for us from the planning division to shut them down and cease their operation until they can get back into compliance. And so that right there is very much, we're aware that these issues can happen. And as opposed to us, again, not being WEDCO 2.0, but us being the local ability to enforce and cease that use specifically, we are kind of looking ahead to this. But if you want to make changes, I think section 6 there would be the place you would make those changes.
So would it be fair to say or propose that anything above accessory use, that we would put some language in there and allow Cam to maybe work with you and David and I about specific language that we can propose before Friday? Of course, like early in the week.
Would it be helpful also, I think it would be for me if WEDCO was here to kind of talk through their process and,
Sure.
So we feel good about, not just assuming WEDCO does this or does that, tell us exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it.
No,
I kind of have some idea, but I don't know.
I can ask if they can have a representative here next Friday.
If they can't,
or if you just want to email that.
Something,
yeah. Let me see if I can get us an email. I'll put Jared on that.
Kayla Kaiser too.
Yeah.
Who I talked to.
All right.
I like that idea of anything above accessory, adding in whatever David said about nose tail coverage.
I like what Holden is saying is, because you're leaving it broader, you're making sure that they still have to, everybody has to meet the same requirements, right? And at that point, and what happens if it goes from accessory to high usage? Am I using okay terms?
Oh yeah.
How is that being kept up with, and how do we make sure that they're following what they're supposed to from this aspect?
So we're going to assume everyone's a good actor in this to start, okay? If you are trying to engage in a high-density RV park, that's going to require that zone change and review of Planning Commission and then Fiscal Court. But one of the conditions of that zone change would be that they would file what's called a development plan. And that development plan then lays out how many sites they have, where those sites are located, how they're meeting all the other design requirements built inside of this document. Anytime somebody goes outside of that development plan, they're in violation of my zoning code. And so again, that gives us the opportunity to enforce. If somebody were operating an accessory use and then they, again, accessory use is a max 2 units per 5 acres, maximum of 5 units. If somehow that then became 5 units per acre, and I mean, the idea is that somebody should probably notice that. And then again, that's just standard code enforcement operation at that point. I mean, what do we
a normal
want?
citizen won't realize that they haven't been before, or I shouldn't say won't realize, usually won't realize. They'll just assume that they have done the right thing and gone before planning and zoning and got all the permits and done everything they're supposed to do. Because you just don't think of somebody coming in and just start building. Okay, that happened not too long ago. So I've got some other suggestions on language that should be added into here with regards to this.
Yeah, and you're talking about the insurance piece. But if you and Cam could get together and wordsmith that little section above accessory use, and then we'll share it early next week with the court and anybody else. So that was a question that addresses any other questions. Rick Hostetler.
So all of this, the insurance and the surety bond, whichever way we go, it's all involved with trying to protect, obviously, the environment because it's in this section on how they're treating their sewage, right?
Yes.
So, but I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you because I probably don't know the answer. So the one spot there in utility, section D, number 1.
What page, Rick?
Maybe
Four
page
of the Lord.
411. I just want to be sure I'm thinking about this right, because I know we had a lot of discussion months ago about how to treat the sewage, but number 1 there at the bottom, RV campgrounds operating on private sanitary sewer facilities shall not utilize package treatment plants. That's what you see on top of the ground, right? Am I thinking? So those are out. So then I read on to number 2. So is that like storage tanks? Is that what?
Yeah, so we'll allow for storage tanks to be, pumped out.
Or I know we talked about,
if there's some sort of other system, again, that has been utilized in other areas for the past 2 years that meet all of WEDCO's requirements, the developer can bring something like that forward.
Gotcha.
But we define what that package treatment facility is. But again, I am not the sewage expert. You don't want your planners figuring that out. But we do have experts, and we do, again, that 2-year provision is actually, I think, one of the most important parts of this ordinance. We don't want Scott County to be the proving ground for some new system or new type of technology. Again, we don't have a lot of RV parks right now in the county. There are a couple. We don't have a lot. But if there is an influx, we don't want all of a sudden a whole bunch of new technology or new stuff coming in until it's, that's what Franklin County's for. Okay? All right, we got to let them do it.
Thank you.
But like any of that, we're going to trust that they're proposing a solid evidence-based database system, but we're going to verify that too.
Right.
Verification is always an important part of the equation.
I want to call the attention of the fiscal court to one other item because, again, I want to facilitate some conversation around this. The existing language within the ordinance says that an A1R use can't be undertaken where soils of statewide importance are prevalent. At the Planning Commission public hearing, there was a representative of somebody who wanted to put in an RV park, and there was a lot of conversation around this ordinance that you see in front of you being much too restrictive, that it is 16 hurdles in a row that you're asking a developer to have to clear. And so in that conversation, one of the things that was put forward, voted on, and you have in front of you is a change of that word prevalent to predominant, with the idea being that basically south of Rogers Gap, soils of statewide importance and prime soils are everywhere. But, there should be some flexibility for Planning Commission and Fiscal Court to consider on a site-by-site basis, is this a good spot for an RV park? And so the idea was, by changing from prevalent to predominant, that would give that applicant a little bit more flexibility, and they could make their case to those boards and to those bodies. That word prevalent, though, has been a part of our code for 30 years at this point. And so as you guys continue to talk about this ordinance, I think there should be additional conversations. And again, I support the document that my Planning Commission voted and has forwarded to you. But I believe that will be a continued point of conversation. Whether or not that boundary or that kind of determining line is prevalent statewide important soils or predominant soils of statewide importance, and how that then plays into the site selection of a developer.
Questions about that?
Just to clarify, Holden, that prevalent is in the comprehensive plan.
Zoning ordinance.
Or in the zoning ordinance. It's been approved by this body, and it's been there for 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else?
If you guys are happy, I'm happy.
So, well, as always, we always want to consider any public comment and public input. And earlier this week, spoke with Mr. Dick Murphy, and Mr. Murphy's here. And I'm going to ask Mr. Murphy share with you all what he shared with Chad. Actually met with us as well, and I think it's important to take in public comment. And I've asked Mr. Murphy to try to be
concise.
So I think you might have a short.
I do. I have a shortened version of what I shared with you two earlier.
Before you start, though, can I say one thing? Mr. Murphy also served on our committee, and I wanted to express my appreciation for the time and effort and the data that you've put together to be a part of that committee. And it's always good to have people from the community and their voice a part of the process. So thank you.
And I appreciate the opportunity to serve. So I hadn't really planned to talk about private sewer systems, but there are three things that I've got knowledge of that you might consider in your consideration. One is the concept of insurance. When I did some preliminary studies on that, Magistrate Livingston is right in terms of cost. I did a what if with a company that does this as a business at a $10 million insurance policy serving a 200 RV site, and the answer ended up being about 30 cents a day would be the cost to that. So it's cheap as chips, as a lot of the Brits would say. So I don't know why we wouldn't do something like that. So the cost element is one thing. Now, on the other extreme, for the very small sites, we have a farm. My wife and I have a boarding operation, and I have had RVs, people who board their horses, bring an RV in. Went through all the WEDCO design criteria and everything to put a septic tank in there. I made the conscious decision to make my septic system twice the size that it needed to be for the bathroom that I put in. But that's a choice I made. So if somebody wants to come in and want to use my septic tank to clear, I felt pretty confident in that particular thing. Prevalent, predominant, prevalence also in the comprehensive plan as well, so it appears in two places. So just a thought, when you start talking about those very small ones, you might consider WEDCO putting a cap on how many could be there based on the existing septic system if you choose to use that as your, for effluent. Oh, the other thing is the effluent that Magistrate Livingston kind of was suggesting. That's a well-known metric for RV sites, so it's pretty easy to calculate what's going to be the effluent from an RV site. That's pretty straightforward. So with that, those of you who know me know that my background is engineering, so I am data-driven. This first shot is just where some of the data came from. So Zach, if you would go to the next slide. I used a methodology that is commonly used in Kentucky and also nationally with regard to crash data, because I do agree with Holden that this is a much better RV ordinance, in my opinion, than the one that we had prior, but I do think there are some tweaks that need to be made. So I've got two to suggest. One, actually I had three, but one of them went by the wayside because I asked Magistrate Wallace to consider looking at adding a requirement for a certified operator into the language for the the private sewer system, similar to what's already in place for subdivisions. There's language in that says if you're going to develop a subdivision, you have to tell planning and zoning who your operator is going to be. And the reason it's nice that it's broadly stated like that is because certifications for treating or for managing private sewer systems are based on the amount of effluent. So WEDCO can say, well, you need a level 3 for this particular one, or you need a level 1. So I'm comfortable that concern has been taken care of because it is part and parcel of the WEDCO project. Now, with regards to crash data, there's something that comes forth in that document that I referenced, and that's the methodology for determining what will be the anticipated number of crashes on a segment of road. Now, you can do it analytically, and in the data that Kentucky puts out, the formula is in there. But that's not as accurate as relying on real-world data. Now, the problem with putting that real-world data in a document like that is it would be huge. So they do it on a statewide level. They've got about 26,000 miles of road that they analyze, and they keep track of all that. They do look at various types of roads, like a 2-lane highway versus a 1-lane highway, or an interstate or a 4-lane highway. And they also subdivide that into urban and rural. So you can look at what's the average number of accidents per mile, if you will, on a rural 2-lane highway, which is largely what we're talking about here for RV parks that might end up in Scott County. The problem is there's not enough detail. They don't go down to the level that we need, in my opinion, to consider health and safety. So what I did, there are two databases that have a lot of information in it. The state police have a website that focuses purely on number of accidents, and it comes down to the very spot where the accident was with GPS coordinates. There's another database that considers all of the traffic flow past certain points where they take measurements, and there's 15 years worth of history on that as well. What's not in any database that I've been able to determine is width of road. It's just not out there. I've contacted Transportation Cabinet. They don't have it. So what I did is I went to Google Earth Pro and physically measured using that to determine what's the width of some of the roads in Scott County. Very labor intensive. It takes a long time to do it. I validated my observations by then taking a tape measure to several places on roads and measuring that to make sure that what I was translating from Google Pro lined up with what I actually measured with the tape measure. just as a form of validation. Now, I didn't do it on all of these roads. I just did it on several just to confirm that I thought, that's probably a pretty good estimate. So once I had that, I looked at 18-foot roads and 19-foot roads, and I picked 5. I picked 5 18-foot roads, 5 19-foot roads. So the way this calculation works out is you have to take into consideration how many vehicles are going to pass a segment of road, what's the length of that road, and how many accidents have been observed over some period of time. So then you can normalize all of that to a metric that is called a crash rate. And crash rates nationally and in the state are revealed as accidents per 100 million vehicle miles, where a vehicle mile is one vehicle times 1 mile, if that's the segment that you're looking at, or it might be 1,000 vehicles on that same segment. You multiply that by 365, and you come up with your annual number. Next slide, please. So what I looked at was really startling to me. I guess we all kind of anticipate that shorter roads, more narrow roads, would have a higher incidence of accidents. What I was not prepared for was the level of differential between an 18-foot road and a 19-foot road. Next slide, please. If you look at the state's average from that document that I referenced, the metric is 200. 200 is the average number of two-lane rural road accidents per 100 vehicle miles. Our 19-foot roads, as you see up in the blue lines, the average there is 216. So that's pretty close. We're accidents about like everybody else in the state. Next slide, please. But if you look at the 18-foot roads, next slide, please, you are 4.3 times as likely to have an accident on an 18-foot road in Scott County as you are on a 19-foot road.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Did you take into account population density and subdivisions and the actual number of trips per day on the 18 versus 19?
No, what I took into consideration was the measured AADT, which is the annual average daily traffic. So we've actually got measurements by the state on what the actual traffic flow is.
That's the traffic count?
That's the traffic count. Yes, exactly. So it's all based on that. Yeah.
If one was under twice, like it's at the top.
Great question. We have two unique opportunities in this analysis. Long Lick from McClellan Drive up to a road called Gaines Road is a 19-foot road. But then it goes to 18 feet from Gaines Road on up. So that's why it's on there twice. Newtown Pike from the Fayette County, Scott County border north to Muddy Ford is a 19-foot road. But then it drops down to an 18-foot road. So you might say, well, you've really got Newtown Pike on it here twice as far as that's concerned, but it does change names as Muddy Ford. The reason I say that's a great opportunity is because now you can look at a road with two different widths. They do have different traffic counts on those, so I was careful not to use the same traffic count because coincidentally, there's traffic data on both of those segments. And so now you can really compare apples to apples. And there's a huge difference in them. As soon as it goes down to 18 feet, there's a lot more accidents that occur. Next slide, please. So another way of looking at this then is now I've got data that allows me to be somewhat predictive in terms of the additional number of accidents that I would expect. So if I pick 200, for example, an RV site with 200, my prediction would be that there would be an incremental 5.53 accidents on that road if it's an 18-foot road than if it's a 19-foot road. If it's a 19-foot road, you're going to have about 0.03 additional accidents, which isn't that much. Now, I am not going to present a 19-foot road as a panacea. And the reason I'm not is because we've also got data on Whispering Hills. I don't know if the EMS person is familiar with that, but I did a little study there. If you go from US 25 to the entrance of Whispering Hills, that's about 2/3 of a mile. The 19-foot section of Rogers Gap goes from US 25 up to about Sims Road, is where it becomes 18 feet. If you look at the difference between the crash rate from US 25 to the entrance of Whispering Hills, it's twice as high as from Whispering Hills entrance to Sims Road. Same road, same width, twice the number of accidents. It's commonly known that around RV parks and campground entrances, you can anticipate an increased accident count. So this data really relies largely on passenger car data. So about the only thing I can tell you for sure is that 19-foot number will not be less than 1. But if you use the same logic on an 18-foot one, it's not going to be 5.53. It's going to be much higher in both cases. Guarantee you.
Can I make a comment?
Please.
So, and I appreciate all the work you've done. I appreciate the information. But I kind of feel like we're getting into the weeds of what we would look at is when it would go to planning, and they've applied, and like Holden said, you know, and to your example, you know, you may be on a 19-foot road that turns into an 18-foot road, and the proposed site is 50 feet down that 18-foot road.
Okay.
And it's a very small amount of road that they would travel to get to that 18, you know. So then that factor is not as great as if it was 2 miles down the 18-foot road, right? Yep. So I just think the data is great, but I think that's what they would consider when somebody applies for the park and then wants a location. And I'm not sure exactly where you're going with it, because I don't know if you're going to come back and say, you know, I would recommend only 19-foot roads or only be on an 18-foot road that's 25 feet off of 19, no, whatever the recommendation is, but I feel like that might be the part when it goes to plan.
Well, I agree totally with Holden. The real core improvement on this RV ordinance is in that density matrix. So let me get to that, and I'll answer your question when I get to that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. So another way of looking at this, so that's all statistics and data and so forth, but think about it this way. If I had a 200 RV park, that's going to drive about 545 incremental vehicles per day. That's the traffic that it's going to generate. Would we consider putting an elementary school with 400 students at the end of an 18-foot road? Would we?
No, because if you have the majority of those students, yeah, if it's good land, yeah. No, but if it has 400 students, you're probably going to have how many teachers?
Well, I used
30. Yeah. 30 teachers. Then you've got cafeteria. Then you've got administration. Then you've got. Yeah. So I don't think you can compare an elementary school, because now you're generating up to a very high level of trips in and out.
Well, that's where
much more so than an RV park of 200. That's where
it's useful to use the guidance of ITE, which is the International Transportation Engineering firm. They've got metrics on all of this, so you can get a number.
They haven't seen how many parents line up to pick up.
But anyway, my point is that we would consider that a health and safety.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us would disagree with that. Or a hotel that you would put out there, or a mobile home park, or anything like that. My point is 18-foot wide roads, in my opinion, are just way, way too dangerous to consider as a primary access for an RV. So next slide, please. Also, if you consider that if I'm going to build a distillery in Scott County, it's got to be on a 20-foot road. Also, the previous RV ordinance required a 20-foot access road. Happens to be the same language as in the zoning ordinance. Also, subdivisions require, as I read it, a 28-foot road or entrance onto a state road. So there's precedent for wider roads. There is no precedent for narrow
The
roads.
subdivision, though, is because of emergency vehicle access.
Well, you don't think we're going to need some of those at RV
Well, but you're
parks?
talking about main roads, though.
Yeah.
You're talking about main roads. So those roads have already been designed or an aspect, and then when you get into subdivisions, you're talking about, is there parking allowed on each side? Is there parking allowed on one side? I mean,
Right.
it's a whole different
Well,
scenario in subdivisions.
I understand, but that's the only three precedents I've got to work with, is to just say that there's precedent for wider roads, not narrower roads. Next slide, please. So my suggestion is a modification of the density chart. Now, when we came out of committee, we basically we parroted the previous RV ordinance with regards to road width. It was at 20 feet. The matrix started at 20 feet. Over the course of several meetings, it somehow came down to 18 feet is allowable, and I strongly oppose that. I just think that we're asking for a lot of accidents near RV park entrances. So my suggestion is you have a 16 to 18 foot allowance. You can have them on that, but that falls into the accessory use, and we start the matrix at 19 feet.
I think a better study on this, or more, maybe more in depth, would be studying the roadways around marinas and campgrounds. Dale Hollow, Van River Lake, Laurel Lake, Lake Cumberland, because we go to Dale Hollow and camp a lot and boat a lot. And that road that we go to on Wolf River Marina is probably an 18-foot road. And so we have pontoon and pontoon passing each other on that road on a consistent basis, and a pontoon trailer is about 10 feet wide. And I cannot recall that I've been going down there 25 years and have never come up on a single accident.
Well, I'll tell you what I will commit to is if the court will provide me with, let's say, five locations like that, between now and next Tuesday, I'll commit to do the work that you just suggested, and I think that's a great idea, to give you some additional information about what's the real world crash count around RV parks or campgrounds. I think that's a great idea. So if you'll give me that, I'll give you back the analysis, because I'm very confident that the data's there. It just needs to be pulled together.
But just to cut to it, though, like your proposed maintenance matrix has a 16 to 18 column.
Yeah.
The matrix that came from planning and zoning had a 16-foot matrix, and then it went to 18.
That's right.
And Chad, help me out here.
Yeah.
If we amended the matrix to reflect, really do away with just that 16-foot column, and the only thing that's permitted on 16-foot roads are accessory use. We all agreed to that.
Yeah.
But then, and then the 18-foot, the 16 to 18-foot would what we discussed, the 16 to 18-foot column, would that include or allow for low density?
You would. One of the things we discussed was removing low density. If you're looking on page 7, where it says permitted under 18-foot roads, they removed the low density, and so it would be accessory use only. But then you would allow that at 19-foot because 19-foot wide roads was what we have on Rogers Gap. And so that current RV park, if it was being proposed today, would fit under this matrix as far as in terms of if it was going to come up for a developmental plan and come in front of us. So it applies to what we have now, which like David said, as far as in terms of going to the lake, you don't see any issues. Well, we haven't heard of any issues on Rogers Gap, so this would format. But then going forward, it would, all that would apply for new proposals.
Holden.
I do have a question, though, real quick. It's going to play in. With the current low density, is 1 unit per acre, right?
Magistrate Pratt, that's actually why I just stepped up.
And then but you're proposing 3 units per acre on your, so I just wanted you to add that in there as well. So, I mean, it's not even, so go ahead.
And that's exactly why I just wanted to hop in for a second. When we first started talking about the matrix, when I was up here, I said that low, medium density, that's all subjective. What Mr. Murphy has proposed here is more restrictive as far as, what size road is needed to accomplish which density. But he does actually have higher densities for both the low and the medium than what is shown on what Planning Commission put forward. We both agree that high density is probably 5 per acre or 10 if you have sewer. And let's be real, if you've got a 20-acre parcel with the sewer connection that isn't prime soils, that's probably a pretty good spot for a campground. We should probably support that. The only other thing that should be discussed is what is low, medium, high for this court, and what do they think the size road that could support that use is. Mr. Murphy also has that greater than 20 category that right now we don't have supported. And again, and I'll look to JR, with this being a county ordinance, the reason staff capped that at 20 foot, which would be 20 foot inclusive of everything greater, is as a county ordinance, I don't know of very many county roads that are wider than 20 foot. And so the idea from planning's perspective was if this is a Scott County ordinance, our widest road should be able to support our highest densities. That again was a choice that staff made, but should be considered because we do have wider roads than 20 foot. They're just called state roads. And so that's just something for you guys to think about. But I want to be very clear. Mr. Murphy has been an incredible contribution to this process all along the way. And so, and he said it himself, this is a better ordinance than last time. That comes because of public participation.
Thanks. So that's it on the density. I've really only got one other tweak that I would suggest. You mentioned it earlier. Next slide, please. And that has to do with this definition of prime farmland. There is an existing ordinance that's A1S. It's for storage of used vehicles, basically. And in it doesn't try to define prime farmland. I said I'm data driven. I liked our committee's 50% or higher is predominant to us. That's what we came out with. That got modified to go back to prevalent or predominant. But there's an existing ordinance, an A1S, where it says the proposed storage sites contain no prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance as defined, yada, yada, yada. I would suggest lifting that, putting it into the ordinance, and changing it to read the proposed RV sites must contain no. In other words, you can't put an RV site on prime farmland. So if you have 100 acres, 50 of it is prime, 50 of it's not prime, knock yourself out, put RVs on the 50 that is not prime, and preserve the other for an agricultural use. Maybe it's a petting zoo, maybe it's walking, maybe it's agricultural, whatever. So that's just a suggestion.
And one of my concerns, we do have that on the books.
Yeah.
But can we go down to the parcel size mapping to do that? Is that possible? Is my question.
Holden, do you want to comment on that? Or you don't have to, but I thought you might.
I think they're asking, can you identify exactly where that
or the practicality of it, I guess.
Somebody brings a development plan and says, here's where I'm putting 50 sites. Can you look and say, well, that's not on prime farmland?
Maybe.
Yeah. It's pretty clearly on a map. I mean,
it's on a map. We've got to see what that would look like on the parcel by parcel. What staff's bigger concern at this point is if we say, that if it can't be prevalent, it can't take place at all. That's a hard line, and we'll draw that, and we'll be good to go. But let's pretend that we're in northern Scott County, and they've got a parcel that's 20% prime farmland. And so we say yes, and we allow roads to access the development throughout the entire thing, over prime soils or not over prime soils.
I'm listening. Hold on.
It's almost like he's doing it on purpose.
Do we really need that extra level of protection? Where we've already said, for practical purposes, that if it's more than 50%, it's not going to take place on the parcel at all. And then we go up into the northern part of the county, and they've got just a little bit of prime, and we want to drill down parcel by parcel and tell them where they can put the exact RV sites. That's a policy level decision. Mr. Murphy has presented an excellent way to ensure that no prime soils get an RV park or RV site placed on them, but I don't think it really ensures that the parcel is any more productive agriculturally because of that protection. But again, that's policy. That's where you guys get to come in.
I'd make a comment, and what I said, my same comment earlier, when we look at a particular site. So let's use that farmland, and it says no prime farmland, which is very exclusive. But somebody has a farm that has 20% is prime, but that's their road frontage. And now they need that road frontage to service their park. And we're going to say, no, you've got 80% that would work, but we're not going to let you go over any prime farmland.
Now, you can build a road, you just can't put an RV there.
Well,
that's the.
Like how far back do you have to go, and how expensive is that on a builder or a developer? And I'm not saying I just something to think about. When you say no prime farmland, I just feel like that's really excluding a whole lot of potential sites.
If Mr. Murphy's working to get you guys that additional data by next Tuesday, and again, that's community service right there. I will commit to trying to see if we can get a prime soils map drilled down to parcel specific for Scott County, so we can take a look at that, what that would look like, and we'll do an array of parcels that are 90% all the way up to all the way down to like 10%.
We'll try to share that via email.
Yeah, I'll get that. I'll see if we can do that, if it's possible.
But if we just change the wording back to prevalent, that's been there for 30 years, does that predominant, when I say predominant, there's many a lawyer that will argue with me, what does predominant mean?
Or prevalent for that matter.
If I say prevalent, there's many, but the prevalent has been there for 30 years. That's the only other comment I'll make. Rhett, and then we're going to wrap this thing up.
I got to say at least one thing, right? So I think it's just an important point of clarity that while obviously protection of prime soils is super important, the A1S zone is a zone that's intended solely for essentially rural scrapyard or junkyard. This language was written with the understanding that these operations are going to have obvious environmental impacts. So while, yes, again, preservation is important, this highly restrictive language is put in place with the understanding that this use, which should have a use in the rural areas and does, that's why that language was so restrictive, not necessarily for recreational purposes as represented in the A1R zone.
Thank you. Any other comment?
The only other comment is I'm perfectly comfortable with the word prevalent as long as somehow you can codify what prevalent means. I don't know I think certainly our understanding is anything more than 50% is prevalent. There's no question about it in my mind. But to your point, a lawyer is going to say, well, no, it's got to be 95%. Then it's really prevalent. Well, that's the dilemma.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time. Any other questions here, and we'll try to communicate. Is there any other comments?
Can I pass this out? I'm going to let the court see this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Cam Culbertson.
Yeah.
Just as terms of the procedure for this, I'm just trying to make it smooth, hopefully. What's going to happen next Friday, I believe, is we'll do a first reading of the ordinance that was presented by the Planning Commission for y'all to consider that. And then I've heard, I don't know if anybody wants to propose any amendments, sounds like there's going to be a proposed amendment with respect to insurance language. David will get with me on drafting that prior to next week. But if any, based on this discussion today, any magistrate's going to want to propose any other amendment, I guess let me know that too. And so the court, if there are any proposed amendments, can vote on those after the first reading. And under the statute, you can amend the ordinance after the first reading, but prior to the second reading. So that's just how the procedure is going to work. Because I don't want to be doing it on the fly at next meeting. Yeah. If you have amendments in your head, think about that.
So what you're saying is, if
you heard something today and you're saying, I'd like to change
if somebody wants to say, let's go back to prevalent.
Yeah.
We're still going to have a first reading of what was presented. Then we can have a recommendation of a change that the court could consider and vote on.
Correct.
In the second reading.
Well, we'll go ahead and vote on, hey, do you all want to make that amendment?
Okay.
Yeah. Next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
All right.
When are you going to do insurance?
Same. I guess that'd be next week as well.
Yeah. You'll read this. We'll make.
And then David or somebody will say, I move to amend to add insurance language as follows.
Okay. So I really greatly appreciate you laying that out. So we'll do the reading and we'll make
any proposed amendments.
Any proposed amendments.
Judge, that picture that's on the road I live on. It's an 18-foot road, and I was driving down the road and took a picture of it. I just want to show, Dick did a great job of doing crash data and all this stuff. Here's the reality. That's what an RV looks like going down an 18-foot road. And
is that David in there?
Huh?
Is that David's? Oh, no.
Yeah, that's David. Yeah. So you all can visually see this is what it looks like, and if another RV's coming, this is why I have a feeling I would like to maybe move to where we only permit 19-foot roads or larger to have RV parks.
Is that a Swan's truck going to your house? I have no other. Does anyone else have anything? Yes, sir.
So this is referring to I think it's called 3.E.
3.E?
The roadways. 3.E, the modification to the roadways, to the thing. And my concern is something that actually goes to the lawyer, because under I-1, it says access to property to be rezoned for an RV campground cannot be made through easements traversing through adjacent properties without written consent of impacted property owners. And the concern that I have is that, do you have that? You don't see it?
You know what page it's on?
6.
Item B, subsection 2.
G.
All right.
Oh, okay. So then I have another version.
I'm following you. Go ahead.
So
I've got you.
So my concern here is, and this is a question for the lawyer, is that the intention of this passage was that, for example, if you have a property that is landlocked, that is, let's say, 140 acres, and you want to have accessory use for RVs, that means you could have 28 RVs on that land, but the only access is through another property, which is, for example, a farm. And the easement has been there for like 200 years. These easements were very broad and extremely vague, so they grant just access to the property. The problem with that is there's many of these easements in this county of that sort, and so if you have that and you allow the rezoning, then or even the conditional use, then you have a change of character of the easement. You would have 28, that's the minimum for a parcel that land size, and they're not rare. So you have 28 RVs that can go in and out over the easement that was before used just for agricultural purposes, but has never been defined as agricultural. And the reason for this passage in here was to make sure that this doesn't happen, without the owners of the property that is subservient to the easement being involved. The problem is, I think, that this infringes on property rights. Because if you don't get written consent from the owners, from the impacted people, then you wouldn't be able to go forward. And I think this is, I'm not sure that this is true, but I feel that this is an issue. And I don't want an ordinance that people have worked so hard on to be then open to a legal challenge. I think it's important to have something in there that is with respect to easements because they are so common. But I think it would be better, unless you have a better idea, to make this in a form that you says, unless you have written consent from the owners, there has to be an analysis of the impact of the change that the easement is undergoing. Like, for example, does it change the character, the intended character and the contemplated character of the easement? What is the traffic and the material impact on that? Like, for example, this is a working farm, like a horse farm. And there is somebody that has, after that now, 28 RVs that they can go in and out. And, for example, this is a foaling or breeding farm. So there's little foals running around. There's pregnant mares running around. There's 28 RVs coming back and forth over an easement that basically was used before just for harvesting, like sowing and harvesting. So maybe like 5 times a year. And now we have this as something like 28 per week.
I follow you and I support what you're saying, that the traditional agricultural use of the easement that's been there for forever, unless you have written approval from the property owner to convert that to a more of a, what I would call a commercial use, then it shouldn't be allowed. But
I agree.
I'm going to have to defer to our county attorney.
I agree, but my concern is the moment this came into the ordinance, Dick Murphy, the lawyer, brought up the point that this is a problem with infringement of property rights. And as I said before, I feel this is important because this is not a non-issue. But on the other hand, I don't want this ordinance that has so many people work on so hard then be challenged by a zoning lawyer the moment it appears because of something like this. So can this be made compatible with property rights so that there is no infringement?
Yeah, well, I appreciate what you're saying, and I guess I would love to see some law on that. If you said that's what you think, but if that's supported by law, I'd love to look at it.
Well, the thing is,
I guess the counter argument to that would be like if you don't have language in there requiring consent from the adversely impacted property owners, you're infringing on their rights. So
that is correct. But I think what I'm saying is that Dick Murphy is not a bad lawyer. He does zoning for a living. So he does. I'm just saying I like to see law. He does rezoning for a living. So therefore, if he brings up the problem with infringement of property rights, then my concern is that since he's not stupid, that this is a potential problem, and I think an ordinance that has been, Dick Murphy has spent so many hours. You have spent so many hours on this. If you amend this passage in a way that it does not infringe on property rights, like for example that unless you have written consent, which basically resolves the issue, that you have to have an impact analysis by a professional. That gives you an idea how the proposed change is impacting the estate, the business, whatever is on there, in terms of traffic, other burdens, and so forth. Maybe that helps,
So what you're saying is that if there's an easement and it has to, that the other property that wants to develop is landlocked, and they want to put a roadway through on that easement, you want to have written consent from the property owner who has the easement on their deed.
That's how it's written.
That is currently written, but I think this is the way it's currently written, I think infringes on the property rights because of the person that is landlocked.
That's their fault, they bought land.
No. I think,
I've got to comment on that because I've looked at a lot of deeds over the last 25 years and seen a lot of these issues.
Right.
But I agree that it is an infringement because they didn't buy that property with restrictions when they bought it. If the owner of the property said, you can only use this driveway 5 times a year and I'll sell you this property. But they didn't have that agreement. You bought the property with a right-of-way. Now you've owned that property and one day you decided you wanted to put an RV park.
The material change from harvesting to commercial, that's a huge material
it is,
change.
but the problem is.
I don't disagree. I don't think that there's a legal.
Yeah, the problem is.
It's a right-of-way that they can bring as much traffic as
Yes.
they need to.
Yes. So you actually point up the exact point. The problem is that the rezoning or the conditional rezoning changes the character of the easement. But the problem is the law doesn't care about that. Because the easement that was worded, let's say, 150 years ago, that says, I grant my successors, free passage to the property for eternity.
So does a smart attorney have a solution to this?
Yes. So
Yeah,
I think so. He's the smart attorney.
Well, thank you.
I think Cam's smart too.
Thanks, man. What I'm trying to say is, and I think everything you're saying is fair and intelligent, obviously, but we're all kind of being put on the spot here. If lawyer Dick Murphy has a proposed solution, like why is this, as the way it's drafted now, infringing on property rights? And if so, what is the proposed alternative language? That's what I would like to review.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't. Okay.
Sounds like you got something to say. Has this been considered at the planning commission?
Guys, this has been so much fun. Really, the one thing here, and I think what we're trying to avoid here, is to give that developer. Actually, no, I'm going to go to that person who holds that, who granted that easement. That the way it's written now, they almost have a veto power, because if they don't sign, then the developer then cannot develop, even if they meet all other requirements. And so I think what is being proposed is rather than, we always want that signature. If we have 2 consenting property owners, we're in a good spot. But barring that, rather than having veto power for the second party, instead it would be a review either by an engineer or somebody else more versed in this that could then at least enumerate that potential impact to the easement, that the planning commission or fiscal court could then review that impact. And again, this is all, again, contingent on the idea that we want the flexibility to allow for RV parks, but at the same time, we don't want any unintended offsite negative impacts to the foals or the mares or really any other property owner.
But like,
is that a fair representation?
If I have the if I have the easement and I want to let it happen, I don't care if 50 cars go through a day. Like, why should I have the burden then to pay for a study?
You wouldn't. You would sign.
You would not.
You would sign and say, I consent to the use of this easement as presented.
Unless the legal language of the easement expressively allows, for example, that form of traffic. Like Dick has an easement that is much younger, that has spelled out all of the kind of things that can or cannot be done. This is not true for easements that were done 100 years ago. So if the easement language is clear, that the use that is intended was contemplated or is explicitly authorized, then you don't have a problem. If the language is vague, like it is in basically all of these cases, then in that case, if you have written consent, the problem is off the table. But if you don't have written consent and the language is not like it is, then you need, I think, a professional to look at this and see what was historically the use of this easement. Does the proposed change impact the use now? In what way is it burdensome, if any, for example, to the business or the property at hand, and to the easement? Because the thing is this, what you don't seem to realize, I think, is if you can use the easement for whatever you want, then you can put your sewer lines and everything in that easement. So all of the things that you're talking about, like, we don't want to have a problem with sewers and everything else, we want to safeguard, this is not an issue if you can use the easement for this. So then it's because it's outside the property that it's to be rezoned. So this is a loophole that is opened up by an easement that is vague because historically it was not necessary. Nobody contemplated 200 years ago an RV park, not even a car. So the thing is, if you have an independent expert evaluate the language of the easement as to its intended use, historically in comparison to now, what the impact is now, then the impact on the servient estate, and the material impact. That means, for example, the things that we talked about in terms of road width and all of these kind of things. Then you have a material basis that I think is legally more defensible for the Commission to use and say, okay, now we have all of this data, and the impact on the easement and everything else is either substantial or not substantial. So I think that may be more sound than prohibiting it, because we all don't want stuff like that to happen. But on the other side, if you're the developer, then you feel you got caught there because you, as Mr. Corman said, you bought a parcel, you thought you have access to that, and then you discover, no, somebody is, holding you hostage.
And that could be even at a smaller scale, that it's traditionally been used very little for harvesting. Now you want to build a house back there. You got 3 kids, and now you've got 5 cars coming and going all the time. And it's an interesting question. I know it's just something we got to research.
And I think the problem is, it would not be necessary because the reference is going back to the subdivision kind of thing, because easements there are quite common. But the problem is, in the whole subdivision ordinance, nowhere is the question that the easement is actually repurposed. It's always assumed that if this is a commercial easement, it is already a commercial easement. It never really, the discussion never comes in there, has this been used before historically for completely other reasons and now is being repurposed? The assumption is that thing has been already settled. That's why Dick Murphy, the lawyer, said easement issues are settled in court. But anybody that has ever been to court as a small business knows that can be crippling. Because if you have a small business go up against the developer, and you have to have $150,000, $200,000 fees to fight a legal battle, then the power is shifted towards the developer.
So I will propose that allow Cam to do some research and then try to address the concern, because I think it is a valid concern, and that Cam,
yeah, that's fine.
Is that something you can share? And
yes, can I ask a question too? I guess maybe from Holden, but really for just trying to figure out what was the intent of putting that language in there. Do you know, from the Planning Commission standpoint?
And I'm sorry, what's your last name?
Gerald Eichhorn is my name.
Okay. Mr. Eichhorn?
Yeah.
Mr. Eichhorn actually originally presented a hypothetical at the Planning Commission public hearing related to what if a developer potentially wanted to utilize an easement through which to facilitate an RV park.
Okay.
And the initial reaction is, and from planning perspective, if somebody comes to rezone a parcel for a 28 or a 50 or a 200 unit RV park and says my access point comes through an easement, that sitting here today, I'm going to tell you staff is not likely to be in favor of that recommendation for a rezone that's reliant on an unspecified use easement through another property. However, as Mr. Eichhorn had pointed out, that doesn't mean it couldn't happen. And so we workshopped in that very short time frame of the meeting this language to try to alleviate that concern that an unspecified use easement could be utilized as the primary access point for an RV park.
But not just that. Not just that. So, for example, you say, okay, we're not going to use this as the primary access point, but you can do, for example, all of the construction through it, because that's not the primary. So the entrance is something else. The emergency exit is something else, but you could still use the easement just purely for construction. You can essentially, with that, ruin somebody else's property, and without any kind of a problem, because it doesn't address the fact that the problem is that the easements, when they were written, were extremely vague because nobody could foresee 200 years into the future. And this is now something that is used, of course, by people that do buy land, because not all of them buy land completely, like naively, and then get into the situation. There's also people that buy land because they know that the easement language is completely vague.
So we're not going to solve it today, but let's let Cam try to do some research and then share, and then we'll go from there. And I know how important this is to you, and that's why I wanted to give you, we wanted to listen, and let's see if we can't navigate it and get a little bit more information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one quick question. Next week's meeting.
Next week's meeting is at 3 o'clock on Friday the 14th. It will be a special called meeting because we are moving the meeting to accommodate the CAECO conference schedule. Yeah. No. We'll meet at 3 o'clock. And hopefully today's discussions help guide us next week and we can move forward. Thank you all.